You want to know why? Ask how! Howard! The humongous! Ah, love those 1930s and 1940s voices. Okay, the subject tonight is why Hamas loves death more than you love life. Why 1,500 deaths in the Gaza conflict so far look very different to you than they do by the people who have really set them up, like setting up a theater prop, the folks in Hamas. The phrase, "we love death more than you love life," first surfaced in the Western mind in 2002, when a bunch of Chechen jihadists took over a Moscow theater and in the process held 130 people or 850 people hostage. Over the course of 3 days, 130 of those hostages died and 50 of the attackers died. And that's when we heard the phrase, "we love death more than you love life." Then 2 years later, in 2004, came the Beslan school massacre against, again, a bunch of jihadists in the Caucasus, the southern Central Asian regions of Russia, of the Russian Federation. Took 1,100 people hostage in a school in Beslan. In that one, 334 people died, most of them children and teachers. In fact, in those two events, a total of over 500 people, all of them innocent civilians, died. And we heard the phrase, "we love death more than you love life." How does that apply to the situation in Gaza? As far as the folks of Hamas are concerned, the life you and I are living on planet Earth is short and relatively irrelevant. It is merely painful. It is dandruff on the face of eternity. The one thing that matters in our life is whether we do the things God demands that we do. If we do the things God demands we do, we go to heaven. We go to paradise, the famous place of 72 virgins. If we screw up, if we do not do what God has demanded of us, we go to hell. Hell and paradise count far more than this life on earth. On earth, you may live 70 years, you may live 80 years, but that is nothing compared to the vastness, the unendingness, the infinity of eternity. So what really matters is whether you get into paradise or whether you go to hell. Now, in the Hamas view of things, in the slogan that is taught to school children, the most glorious thing you can do, says the slogan, the most glorious thing you can do is die in the cause of Allah. So what happens to those 1,500 people? Their death is irrelevant. That's only the end of their earthly life. What's the difference between 3 months and 70 years compared to eternity? It's a flick. It is a nothing. Eternity is what really counts. And a baby killed in a battle with unbelievers, idolaters of any kind, whether they be Jews, Christians, Buddhists, or atheists, totally secular people, a death in order to bring the light of obedience to God, of Sharia, of Islam to the world. That death, the baby who dies goes immediately to paradise. So what happens when a baby is killed in a battle against unbelievers? It gains the biggest bonanza in the universe. Eternity in paradise, an express ticket to paradise, no opportunity to slip up, to screw up, and to go to hell. Where in the world did this, first of all, let's go to geometry. Once upon a time in high school, they probably gave you geometry. And at the beginning of geometry, you got about 3 axioms and 3 givens, 3 or 4 assumptions. And from those assumptions, over the course of the year, you yanked out an entire system of geometry. The system that was stamped into the Western mind in 300 BC with the elements. One thing that was discovered in the 19th century and fiddling around with geometry is that if you change the axioms, you get an entirely different geometric system. And if you change the assumptions on which a civilization is based, on which a worldview is based, on which a perceptual lens is built, you get a vastly different worldview. You get a vastly different perception. You get a vastly different civilization. And there is something these days that you could call the Arc of Jihad. The Arc of Jihad goes all the way from Xinjiang in China through Afghanistan and Pakistan, down to the Middle East, including Gaza, and sweeps all across the north of Africa, all the way to the Atlantic. It includes the groups that are trying to take the Xinjiang province of China and make it a part of a grand caliphate. They call it East Turkmenistan, not Xinjiang. These days, groups of men armed with knives, jihadists, are wading into crowds at train stations or police stations and are killing as many people as they can, as many as 30 to 35 people at a time. That's Xinjiang in China. Then there is Beslan and Chechnya, the southern parts of Russia, the Caucasian parts of Russia, which are Muslim. The jihadists want that as part of a global caliphate. Then there's Pakistan and Afghanistan, where folks like the Taliban want to take the territory and turn it into a jihadist state, part of a grand caliphate. That's what ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which now simply calls itself the Islamic State, wants. That's what it wants, a grand caliphate in which the entire ummah, the entire body of the people of Islam are united under the only true law, the only law that God has ever given mankind, Sharia. Take off remove people's heads, crucify them. That's what's going on under ISIS right now. People are being crucified. Or amputate their limbs if they step out of line. ISIS has issued a 5-year plan. It says that it intends to take the entire Middle East and all of Northern Africa and Spain, all in the next 5 years. Spain? That sounds grotesque. That sounds ridiculous. No. Islam held Spain from approximately 700 AD until 1492 AD. That's over 700 years. And the jihadists want Spain back. In fact, they want whatever territory you are sitting in, and I am sitting in right now, back as well. The Arc of Jihad goes from Xinjiang through the Caucasus, through Afghanistan, through Pakistan, down through ISIS, and all the way across Africa with Al-Shabaab, a jihadist group in Somalia, on the east coast of Africa, and Boko Haram over in Nigeria on the other side of Africa, and in between them is Mukhtar Bel-Mukhtar's group, which used to be called Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, AQIM, but today seems to be called something like the Band of Brothers Who Have Sworn Their Oath in Blood. And all of these people believe the same thing, that death in the name of Allah brings you to eternity. And these people are smart when it comes to publicity. They know the ways of the West. They know that the death of a baby, the displacement of a family, the death of an entire family can be used as a press release to gain headlines in the West, where death is not seen in the same way that it is seen through jihadist eyes. Found a different civilization, a different society, on a different set of assumptions, that death is glory and endless paradise if you die fighting, if you die in a jihad, if you die in a holy war to bring Islam to the rest of the world. Instant ticket to paradise. It means far more than life, and those gullible Westerners will eat it up and destroy themselves with their own headlines. Why Hamas loves death more than you love life. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the idiocy of that infernal off button, and I think I've got it.